All right, going back to the main part of the book, we were in the middle of quoting 1 Corinthians 15, 45 through 49, and then we got interrupted because of an explanatory note. But in all actuality, I have a second explanatory note mixed in with this as well. So I'll read up to that point. We'll go over that explanatory note, which is not as long as the last one, and then we'll finish the quoting of the scriptures. So let's get started. 1 Corinthians 15, 45 through 49. So it is written, the first man Adam was made a living soul. The last Adam, Jesus, was made a quickening spirit. Howbeit, that was not first, that is, Adam, which is spiritual, but that which is natural. And then afterward, Jesus, that which is spiritual. The first man, Adam, is of the earth, earthy, meaning natural, even carnal. And that's where we have this second explanatory note for this quoting. And let's go to it right quick. It's not long. For natural, even carnal. Just because Adam had become a living soul rather than just a dead soul, it did not mean in the least that he had no more carnality afterwards, which proves out in his story to certainly be that case. Much the same with us when we first come into God's graces. We do not become mature in Christ overnight, of course. Maturity in God comes with time and experience, which eventually turns into wisdom. But if we sin a great sin, as Adam and Eve finally did, we'll not live long enough in God's kingdom to ever become a quickening spirit, like Jesus did, who, like we should, was born again by the Spirit of his Father, just after the Spirit had descended upon him at John's baptism, as I've been contending herein, not because of the natural water, but because of that Spirit coming upon him. Okay, now, that was it for that explanatory note. Having said that, allow me to just start over in the quoting of this. 1 Corinthians 15, 45 through 49, and this time, we're actually going to make it through the whole quoting of this. So it's written, the first man Adam was made a living soul. The last Adam, Jesus, was made a quickening spirit. Howbeit that was not first Adam, which is spiritual, but that which was natural. And afterward, Jesus, that which is spiritual. The first man, Adam, is of the earth. He's earthy, natural, carnal. The second man, Jesus, is the Lord from heaven. As is the earthy, all those who are after the similitude of Adam, such they also that are earthy, as he was, so are others the same. And as is the heavenly, those who follow Jesus, not in word, but in deed, as we see in James 1:22, such are they also that are heavenly. And as we have borne the image of the earthy, we all do, when we're carnal and mortal like Adam, we shall also bear the image of the heavenly and be similar to Jesus after his resurrection when we are born again. Seeing as many folks look at first man Adam as to being more than just a mere man, there very well just may have to be some well thought out doctrinal solutions for these verses. But I myself am seeing them just how they are presented. First man Adam was a mere man. Jesus, though born in flesh when he came to earth, had eventually become a full-fledged spiritual being, showing the rest of us of how to become a spiritual creature as well, and of how to leave the world of flesh, first man Adam's world, completely behind us. But once again, with how some scriptures do read, and if, as I have explained in the last chapter, we can't truly understand what a proverb, a parable, a similitude, a figure, an allegory, or a metaphor really is, then we may be reading something in the scriptures that just isn't there. Is that impossible? Well, let's take, for instance, the Garden of Eden. For not only did Adam walk therein, but so did Lucifer. Well, not really. For once again, Lucifer was presented in the book of Isaiah. And here in Ezekiel, it was the king of Tyrus that was in that garden. Does that therefore make him to be an Adam himself, a look back perhaps, and not some ancient king of Tyrus? No, friends, let's not misread these types of verses like this. Curiously, it's Ezekiel, the man of whom spoke of the king of Tyrus, who refers to the Garden of Eden once again in a later chapter of his. Let's see how he treats it there. Ezekiel 31, verse 9. I have made him fair by the multitude of his branches, so that all the trees of Eden that were in the garden of God envied him. But what is that verse really even talking about? The subject actually begins in verse 1 of chapter 31, and we would do very well to actually understand them. So let's begin our journey here. Ezekiel 31, verses 1 through 2. It came to pass in the 11th year, in the 3rd month, in the 1st day of the month, that the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, speak unto Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and to his multitude, who are you like in your greatness? Now, we're speaking of a natural king here. This time it's Pharaoh in Egypt. So was this message, just like it was for the king of Babylon, in proverbs and parables? But let's continue. Ezekiel 31:3. Behold, the Assyrian was a cedar in Lebanon with fair branches, with a shadowing shroud, and of a high stature, and his top was among the thick boughs. Now, here we have a kingdom, a man's kingdom, Assyria, being referred to as a cedar tree. Is that odd? Well, it would be odd if that message was not a metaphor. But let's continue. Verse 4. The waters made him great. The deep set him up on high, with her rivers running about his plants, and sent out her little rivers into all the trees of the field. Now, this is getting really strange here. It almost sounds like the garden in the book of Genesis, right? Now, let's go to verses 5 through 9. Therefore his height was exalted above all the trees of the field, and his boughs were multiplied, and his branches became long because of the multitude of waters, when he shot forth. All the fowls of heaven, they made their nest in his boughs, and under his branches did all the beasts of the field bring forth their young, and under his shadow dwelt all great nations. Thus was he fair in his greatness, in the length of his branches, for his root was by great waters. The cedars in the garden of God could not hide him. The fir trees were not like his boughs. The chestnut trees were not like his branches, nor any tree in the garden of God was like unto him in his beauty. I have made him fair by the multitude of his branches, so that all the trees of Eden that were in the garden of God envied him. Was Egypt an established nation in Genesis chapter 2? Or how about Assyria? Now, before we continue on, I have another explanatory note, but it's a very important note for us to understand, because we need to understand the history of all this.